This
No compromise on gameplay.
is absolutely everything.
No compromise on the AI and the levels.
You need to know.
We had to bring the full experience to the fans.
About Hitman 3 VR Reloaded on Quest 3. Let's just jump right into it. I'm excited to talk about it. So first thing I kind of wanted to mention was, what was it like taking a series like Hitman, this iconic series with such a deep history and so well known, and kind of bringing that gameplay style into virtual reality?
Great question. And 3 years we've been in development with this project from the very beginning. And I remember when the CTO and CCO had reached out from IO Interactive, and they reached out to a handful of studios who they felt could be entrusted with the IP. And for us to build up the rapport and the relationship with the studio, as well as being massive fans of Hitman and wanting to bring it to the Quest headset, it's a very enjoyable experience to kind of go through that process, earn their trust, show them our technical skills, and to have been awarded the contract was, a monumental day for XR Games and myself personally, and for the team who'll be working on it. So, we understand that we've been entrusted with a great IP. We love it ourselves. And to kind of bring it to a new audience on the Quest headset was, an endeavor we knew was a heavy responsibility. But we were extremely excited to be able to bring it to the Quest headset. Christian, anything further you'd like to add there?
Oh yeah, it's been an absolute privilege to work on the Hitman franchise. I grew up with it. I played the original Hitman, back in Codename 47, back in 2000 on the PC. Now, one of the hardest games I played when I was younger, but it's been, seeing the franchise go from strength to strength as it's developed, and been having an opportunity to work on that franchise is absolutely amazing, because it's part of, iconic IP within the gaming space. So.
Probably worth adding as well is that as we got kind of deeper into the negotiations and the contract and stuff, it was very clear from IO Interactive's perspective that they knew it was a huge technical endeavor to go from a flat screen console game powered with mains to a mobile device that is a Quest 3 headset. And the Quest 3 didn't even exist when we started this project, so that's worth adding in there as well. And they were adamant that there can be zero compromises on gameplay and game design and AI. All that has to work. And they were right in making that request from us, and we wholeheartedly agreed. So the technical challenge, which we will delve deeper into through this course of the interview, is we'll keep that in mind, that there could be no compromise on gameplay, no compromise on the AI and the levels, where we had to bring the full experience to the fans. And that was probably one of the key challenges, to not touch any of that.
That makes me extraordinarily excited just to hear that, the fact that they were so adamant about that, and that you've taken that 3-year endeavor to make that come to virtual reality. So kind of piggybacking off of that, can you kind of walk us through some of the development process for Hitman 3 VR Reloaded? What was some of the key challenges and milestones that you guys faced as you went through development over the past 3 years?
I'll set it up for Christian because he's lived and breathed it every single day. But, over that 3-year endeavor, it may surprise you that that first entire year was spent trying to get the custom Glacier 2 G2 engine to work on the Quest headset. And we essentially worked in darkness. Like, every time you put your headset on, it's darkness, right? And it took a whole year before we got one disco ball to work on the headset in RGB colors. And that was a hella moment to reach. And we felt such great joy in getting this disco ball to show in the headset, because now we had the engine working. But let me pass over to Christian. He's lived and breathed this journey for sure.
As Bobby's already mentioned, the rendering was a huge part of it. And just that was the biggest first hurdle that we had to get, amongst many other challenges, bringing things like crowd systems and all of these other areas on the game, because it's such an extensive game. It has so much things going on in it, and IOI have done a fantastic job on crafting this series over the years, and trying to stay true to that and bringing those elements over. So each thing was a challenge from a technical standpoint of trying to bring this to mobile hardware.
And it's probably fair to say, well, it's actually the truth. When this project was started, from both IO Interactive's perspective, Meta's perspective, and XR Games' perspective, we knew we were going into this project about to face many unknowns. And it's only once you start kind of unraveling the problem and kind of overcoming one problem, you're like, oh wow, no one expected this. Oh my God, how are we going to overcome this technical challenge? And it's just been technical challenge after technical challenge after technical challenge. And, very much looking forward to kind of writing a technical blog on those challenges, because it's been quite the journey, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I'll kind of touch a little bit later on the hardware aspect of working with the Quest 3. But first, speaking of challenges, what was your approach when it kind of relates to the gameplay mechanics? There's very specific mechanics in Hitman in the flat version. What was kind of the approach when taking these gameplay mechanics and bringing them to VR? And what type of challenges did you have to overcome to allow players to actually interact with the world of Hitman from a VR experience?
Great question. So when working on a kind of port like we have done here, typically, for example, typically when you make a VR game and you start off with your prototype, you're essentially prototyping VR interactions, right? How do I move around this world? How does gun reloading work, for example? Once you kind of got your VR interactions, then you might add in some characters, some NPCs, the environment. So you kind of start from the heart of the game and work your way out. When we're working with port, the first thing we do is get the engine working on the headset. Once we get the engine on, we start bringing on different systems online. And then kind of everything comes on. And then, for example, Dubai, which was the first level, location we specifically worked on, the whole of Dubai is there, but you can't see it all because the render is not working. So you actually find that the very last thing you do is focusing on the VR interactions in a high level nutshell. But when we got there, Christian, what did you do?
So we the biggest VR interaction we've introduced is the full ability to use your left hand now. In previous versions, the left hand, due to technical constraints on the PlayStation VR and whatnot, you couldn't use it, fully utilize it. So now that was the first step. We wanted to bring it in line with most VR games that you would see out there. So having full interaction, anything you can interact with your right hand should be translated to your left hand as well, and you should be able to hold weapons in those hands. You should be able to open doors with those hands. You should be able to do all these expected VR interactions that you can all do with the right hand in the current iteration of the VR version that IOI put out. So that was one of the key aspects that we really wanted to tackle first and bring that on. And then we wanted to see how we could potentially add enhancements in certain areas. So, for instance, we've added the ability that if you have a keypad now, rather than just using the controller to kind of move the keys and select them like you would on the flat screen, you can now use your finger, your hand controller to kind of push those interactions and whatnot. So we've tried to add little elements like that in there, and try to sprinkle little bits and bobs of VR interactions. Hitman's franchise is so large in itself that it's very hard to make sure that we're trying to find a balance between the gameplay and the areas that Bobby mentioned earlier, where we can't change the fundamental gameplay of it, and trying to find the balance between that whilst also trying to introduce these nice little VR polishes and improvements, so to speak.
Sure, yeah. So now you kind of mentioned that that's one of the things that differentiates this game from maybe past VR iterations of this game, the past iteration that IO worked on. And so this is kind of the de facto VR version once you guys have it in people's hands, right? This is the true VR version, the way that it really people want to play it in VR.
I mean, the work the IO Interactive team did on previous VR versions, such as the PlayStation PSVR 1 and for PCVR, I mean, those are huge technical achievements, and being able to play it in the PSVR was amazing. This is a legit AAA title on the PSVR. So what we've done is built on the work that those guys have done. So, for example, it's the first time you can play it untethered, and that sense of freedom is liberating with the addition of room scale movement as well. I mean, you're crouching on your knees, you're kind of walking through the green grass and the weeds and sneaking up on your targets. It just feels amazing. And for me, it feels one of the most immersive ways to play Hitman for myself personally, because you're untethered, and that sense of freedom really adds to it.
Sure, yeah. So now, kind of as a follow up to what we were just talking about, you mentioned you're trying to sprinkle kind of like the VR interactions and then kind of season the game with that, with when you're able to do that. What kind of things can we expect from the game for VR interactions? Just because my audience is like super VR focused, I think they'd love to get a tease of what they might be able to expect, whether it's weapons handling or world interactions, what you might be able to interact with if you're using something to distract someone or changing disguises. What kind of things can we expect?
Cool. Christian?
So we've introduced some motions as well, so you can now climb ladders by doing this with your controllers, and you can also leap over things by kind of pushing over like that. So you can now jump over to try and keep an immersive experience there. But we've also changed the throwing system as well. So we've introduced free throwing into the game now. So in the previous versions of it, you could only have the targeted throwing, and then you try to target throw it. But now we've given the option that you can either have a targeted throw, where you could lock onto NPCs, or you can just straight free throw every object in the game. So anything that Agent 47 could pick up previously could now also be free throwed. Talking of distractions, so this is a good example that like our QA team and that like to do is, for instance, you're coming up to the introduction to Dartmoor and you've got the gates there and you've got the guards and stuff. Say maybe you get an item and you actually can free throw it over the wall now, and then continue with your thing and then go through and then pick up your item over the other side of the wall, which wasn't something you could previously do, which is very VR, makes you feel immersed in the world, being able to do these little new approaches to the gameplay. Is that it's all sitting there. It's a fantastic game. Hitman 3 is a fantastic game as it is, and we've just introduced new approaches and new ways to play it with the dual wielding and being able to do the free throwing among these areas.
And I think that's such a key point, Matt, for existing fans of the franchise, is that your beloved game, if you're a fan already, you've played it, we're actually introducing new ways in which you can tackle these locations and missions that you are presented with. So that's super exciting. And Christian, it's also worth noting that we were discussing before, like placing a banana on the floor, like the previous VR version is a slightly convoluted way of doing that. And we've kind of, now you've got banana. If you want to talk about that, Christian, that was a really cool way of doing it.
Yeah, so in the previous PS4 version, you couldn't place items. And then in the PC VR version, you had to have a keyboard there to place items because of the way the placement system previously worked. We've integrated the placement system now into the standard kind of free drop-in kind of system. So now you could sit there if you have a banana. I'm going to use the banana as a iconic Hitman kind of thing. So if you've got a banana now, you can go up to the floor and you could like place it on the floor like that, drop it, walk away, and then just watch, all of the bananas cartoon happening of the guy slipping up and everything. Where unless you had a keyboard in the previous version, you couldn't do the placement; it would drop and just kind of smash. So we've integrated the placement into more of a flow kind of where you can put it down and have those fun moments.
The true VR interaction, so people will feel like that. Yeah, that's a really immersive approach to it. Now, you mentioned previously in the last question I asked, you mentioned dual wielding. Now, I want to return back to that because that's something that fans have wanted for ages to be able to do this, right? In VR, dual wielding is a big deal. Kind of talk about what it was like bringing that kind of dream to reality in virtual reality.
I mean, just as an intro to you, Kristen, first time I got to experience the dual wielding, my gosh, you feel like such a badass, right? Like straight up Agent 47, under secret operator, feels almost Bond-esque, right? But just feels amazing being having dual wielding. But Kristen, if you want to talk about that and to get there, what it took.
Yeah, bringing dual wielding was an important thing for XR, but it was also an important thing for IOI. It was something very much that we wanted to reintroduce into the franchise. And it was challenging to think of how we would integrate that system in the first place and bring that in and trying to make sure that it doesn't damage the overall gameplay experience, right? Because Hitman fundamentally is about that stealthy approach. You're trying to blend in, you're trying to do all of this and fundamentally work in that kind of thing. So the biggest challenge for us was, how do we kind of balance these different areas out? So, for instance, we don't we have reloading independently on both hands. So you press the button and then it reloads the right, but you can't shoot with the left because you're occupied reloading the right. Which is a balancing method, so that you can't magically reload whilst going nuts with this hand. And the AI is just well crafted anyway in iOS system, and it complemented it quite well. So it still gives that nice difficulty balance where if you go in guns blazing, you're still going to have a harder time than if you actually try to be sly. But as we branched on earlier, it introduces more play methods. So now you can take out a person with a gun over here, or you can also throw something over here, and target this person. So you have that more, as Bobby mentioned, that badass feeling. It's that John Wick kind of feeling where you could go in a room, and if you get really, really good at the game and the dual wielding, you have the speed runners who do all these fantastic videos for the flat screen version. I'm excited to see what these speed runners can do with dual wielding, walking in rooms, and quick accuracy, and quickly going through them. So I'm really, really excited to see that.
That's a really good point, Christian. I didn't even think that the world records might even get beaten even further now that people can dual wield.
You also kind of hinted at this as well. So dual wielding obviously means the iconic pistols from 847, but it also means you can interact with an element or throw something or with an offhand while you hold your gun at the same time.
Yeah, so every gun is dual wieldable now. So we've allowed every gun to be able to dual wield. Obviously, we've balanced that as well. So if you have two AK-47s and you're shooting, obviously you're going to have more kickback kind of thing on it. But yeah, you can dual wield every gun, and you can also cross weapons as well. So you can have throwable items with a gun, or you can have a melee item with a gun, and you can shoot over here and hit someone over here with that. And whatnot. So basically, everything you could use with one hand previously can now be used with two hands.
That's exciting. There's going to be some very creative stuff happening, I think.
And Kristen, I think it's so. Just to add on there as well, Matt. Kristen, do you want to talk through the UI and UX considerations for dual wield and how we came up with our innovative solution there in terms of the orb?
Yeah, so because in the original VR version, they had the orb that was in the middle of the screen. Because you're now dual wielding, it's quite difficult to avoid accidentally like triggering that and that going like this, right? Because you've now got that flexible of your hands being free. So to face that challenge, we were like, how can we make this more dynamic? How can we allow the player to have more dynamic approaches to when they're playing? So we came up with the idea of taking this orb and instead making it into rings around the wrists here. And then each one of these rings now has a quick slot. So what you can do is you can pick up a gun and you can put it into your quick slot on your left hand, and you can pick up another item and put it into your quick slot on your right hand. So you approach a situation and then you go, I'll quickly get my gun. That kind of thing, rather than having to navigate the inventory and go in it. You can quickly grab these items from your wrist rings, we call them, from your wrist rings, which is introduced again. It's made the gameplay flow a lot nicer. Try to think about how the user would experience that and try to cater to that user experience.
One thing I know that people are very curious about in the previous teaser trailer, announcement trailer that you had released, it was noticed that there was the hand avatar instead of the full body avatar. Now I'm curious how you kind of, with that, how you indicate maybe the disguise is changing or what's happening, because obviously disguises is a big part of the game. So how will players be able to differentiate who they're currently disguised as and kind of how that works?
That was 100% a key consideration as we move from full body to just hands. And great question. So the solution we came up with is that your wristwatch is super important as like a mini map for you, and as you flick up the wristwatch, above it will show you the disguise that you're wearing.
Okay.
But did you want to add anything further to that, Christian?
We ultimately wanted to give hands only because that's the expected VR experience, right? And most games you play are hands only, but it also gives us flexibility as developers. It means we can bend the body in ways that is a lot more less noticeable if you're got arms and stuff attached to them as well. And because we're fundamentally are doing a port of the game, we have to work in the constraints that were already set up ahead of us. And bringing in that was one of the key questions we had for ourselves, is like, how can we still convey that people were in a disguise if it is hands only? And this is where the idea of the wristwatch kind of came out of, like, if we have a wristwatch there that can give you the information, if you pop like that, then you've got this information where it tells you your current disguise, what it is, gives you your mission objectives, gives you what your current status is in the world, gives you your mini map by default as well on the front of the watch, so you could use it and you can look up at it and walk around like this with it on your hands. But also to give that balance in gameplay, so when you lift it, you still got this thing here, so your vision is obscured a little bit still, which is help the balance of the gameplay. And then certain costumes, if a costume has, say, gloves, for instance, you still get those gloves in your hands only.
Yeah.
So if you're picking up the doctor's outfit and it's got gloves on, your hands will have gloves on them as well.
Yeah.
So that will help add that conveying of what disguise you are and whatnot. But yeah, it was a very, very big question we had for ourselves when trying to, what would be the best approach and solution to this.
And just from a personal perspective, when playing VR games, when you've got the full body in there, I find it kind of breaks the immersion if I'm looking down and, I don't know, I'm pouring a coffee, for example, and I look down and my elbow isn't my real life elbow, isn't where my in-game elbow is.
Yep.
Kind of all those edge cases, I felt it kind of break the immersion. And just having hands, for me, you don't have any of those issues. And for me, it felt the most natural way to play the game.
Yeah. So now you mentioned movement a second ago. What can we expect as far as like the locomotion and movement in the game? What kind of options are going to be? Is it going to be free locomotion like the regular game? Teleportation? What options are we going to
have? Sure. Do you want to go first, Christian?
Yeah. So what we've done is we've introduced room scaling into it. So as Bobby was mentioning earlier, untethered gameplay. So you can now walk around your space and play in that approach. You can play seated gameplay and sit down and play. We've also introduced 3 different types of movement modes. So we've introduced head-based movement, so you move in the direction that your head's kind of facing, or we've introduced like what we call finger pointing. So you move your hand and then you kind of go in that, the standard kind of VR movement mode. So we've introduced those movement modes into the game as well. We did not bring in teleporting. The reason we didn't bring teleporting in is because fundamentally Hitman is a stealth approach game, and we didn't want to break that core gameplay element of bringing in teleporting, where you could start, just jumping around to the different targets and all of this kind of stuff. So that was a decision made from a technical standpoint as well, because it's very difficult to bring that system into a game that's never built for a teleporting system.
Sure.
And the AI, the way the AI works is the AI relies on seeing you. So if you're teleporting, it's no longer seeing you anymore. So it can introduce a whole world of different problems, but also just to keep that core fundamental pillar of Hitman, which is, that stealth approach, and making sure that the player feels like they're not getting separated from the experience too much of what Hitman is fundamentally about.
Now, when it comes to the gameplay itself, were there any specific gameplay mechanics that you kind of had to come at from a different direction and redesign or adjust to fit VR that maybe you haven't mentioned yet?
So we changed a bit of the blend-in actions. So in the previous version of the VR experience, when you did a blend-in action, you'd normally be locked into what you were doing or holding. We've basically unlocked you. So now you can sit there, if you've got a glass of wine and you're blending in, you can be like this and swinging it, and all of these. And if you're sat on a bench, it'd previously lock your hands like kind of to your legs, and you kind of sat there. But now we've unlocked the hands, so if you want, you can sit there and do this or whatnot, and dance in certain situations. So we've unlocked that because we wanted to give the player, that full feeling of if they want to feel immersed, they can immerse themselves. If not, that's kind of their choice within those blended actions.
Sure. Okay.
That's one of the key things that comes to my head.
Okay.
Like it's a very well crafted game generally. So.
Yeah. And then earlier on, we're going to kind of get more into the technical part a little bit now. You'd mentioned bringing it to the Quest 3, that you didn't have the Quest 3 when you started this journey in hand. Now, with the Quest 3 in hand, what did the power of the Quest 3 unlock for you or allow you to actually bring to the game that might not have been possible on previous hardware? Whether that was things like crowds or level size, AI visuals, what kind of things were you able to accomplish on the Quest 3 that might not have been possible in previous generations?
Great question. If it wasn't for the Quest 3, this game, we would have had to have made some sacrifices to gameplay. And thankfully, because of the power of the Quest 3, we haven't. So to get, take Berlin, for example. When I'm walking around Berlin and you're feeling the beat of the music, and it feels like you're entering an actual nightclub. And as you're going through the corridors and you see the dance floor from the kind of third floor, it's an amazing feeling to think that the team have worked so hard to enable you to experience this on a mobile device and to have the number of NPC characters that are interactable. It just blows my mind that the team have done this. But Christian, please take that forward.
Yeah, Hitman is such a large game. Generally, it's basically a sandbox, isn't it? That allows you to craft your experience in the way you want, and part of that experience is the identity of those worlds that you're sat within. And this is things like the scale of those worlds and the characters within those worlds. And that. So the Quest 3, what that allows us to do, because being more powerful hardware, it allows us to try and retain those identities of those worlds, having those crowds, keeping the player, immersed within those worlds. So having the Quest 3 there and having, arguably one of the most powerful, consumer VR headsets, it allowed us to really maintain a lot of those core pillars within the Hitman franchise that people come to expect. And without that hardware, it would have taken a hell of a lot longer to bring this over, for potentially additional years and all of that. So it's been a blessing in a lot of ways, working with Meta to bring this experience.
And there were, obviously it started as a Quest 2 endeavor. But as Christian said, it would, with time and money, everything is possible. And as Christian said, it would have taken, a lot longer to bring it to the Quest 2. Hence why it's a Quest 3 exclusive. And, when that technology came out, we saw this basically 100% more processing power than the Quest 2. The team were like, okay, some of these challenges now we can see a line of sight here to go forward. And, apologies to Quest 2 owners that it's not on there. We really did want it on there, but it is what it is. But for the Quest 3 owners, you're gonna, fingers crossed, you really, really will enjoy this game. And again, it's a testament to the engine that IO Interactive have created. It's a custom C++ engine, and it's a testament to what they've done to enable so many NPC characters to be visible on screen. That's for the flat screen. Obviously, we're able to kind of carry on that work and kind of work on the shoulders of giants to bring that to the Quest 3. And for me personally, I've never seen so many interactable NPC characters as you see in Dubai or you see in the Berlin dance floor. And that is a feeling and experience I won't ever forget. It's amazing. And I can't wait for the audiences to experience that themselves as well.
I definitely can't wait to see those levels recreated in VR in the Quest 3. Now talking about recreation, and you mentioned seeing things, let's talk about the art style. So you went with a little bit different direction in art style than the original Hitman 3 game. Talk about what you kind of made you decide to do that, and maybe give us some more information on what we can expect for art style.
For sure. So the Hitman 3, the Hitman World of Assassination, is a very realistic art style. And as much as we would have loved to have brought that to the Quest 3, it just wouldn't run, right? It simply wouldn't run. So we had to get savvy with decisions on what we could and should do to the art style to make it run. So hence why we've gone with an art style that's kind of akin to like a cel-shaded art style that reduces the poly count, reduces the processing power required to get these assets to be rendering in the headset. And also it looks beautiful. Well, we think it looks amazing and it looks fantastic, and it really suits the Hitman franchise as well. So very excited for fans to see that. Obviously it's not realistic because that's not possible on the Quest headset, but we think we've done a greater job as possible with the game itself. But Christian, please, as a game director, what were your thoughts on the art style and the direction we went?
So there's a lot of it was summed up by Bobby there. We have to abide for technical restraints that we have, and bringing things like PBR, like pipelines online, requires things like roughness and all of this. So it's a lot more difficult. It requires more maps to be loaded. It requires more higher triangle accounts in areas to kind of achieve that, height maps, all of these different areas. And all of this is loading in and creating batches. So we have to find this nice balance. So we wanted to find an art style that still conveyed that Hitman kind of, iconic like look of Agent 47 and the worlds and everything, but also allowed us to bring these experiences to the Quest platform, and still look really nice as it comes across and everything as well.
And it's worth noting, Matt, as well, that if we took every single asset in the Hitman 3 game and did what we needed to do to it to get it into the new art style, we'd be here for years and years, and we'd need an art team as big as the original one. So, we had to develop some tools ourselves, such as a crunchy tool that kind of helped to reduce the poly count and the triangle count by about 80%, I think we got to. That it was automated, and then 20% by human hands. I think that number actually increased as the project went on. But we had to kind of spend time developing the right tools and the right processes to streamline this as much as possible, because the budget would have just blown out of proportion if we had to do it by hand. But the technical art team on this project is second to none to what I've seen in the industry in terms of what they've managed to create, as well as the developer. Everyone involved in this team, it's absolutely amazing what they've managed to create with the restrictions they've worked within.
Okay, awesome. Now, just a couple of kind of overall questions to get your feeling about the project and how excited you are. So, what has been the biggest challenge bringing a AAA game like Hitman to a mobile VR headset like the Quest 3?
I'll let you go first, Christian.
Where do you start? That's one thing. How long is a piece of string? Yeah, no, it's a lot of it's been very difficult, to be honest, to bring a lot of it. A lot of it's been challenging. We're just simply bringing the online progression systems that are in the flat screen to an offline platform. That has been a huge challenge, because that's been untying and untethering a lot of things that talk to the server. Like everything you're doing is talking to a server, and we have to take that and go, okay, how do we still maintain the same system, but now it's no longer talking to a server and there's no authentication happening and all of that. So that was a huge technical challenge, that spanned quite a while over, but it's something we really wanted to bring because we want people to play the game, over and over and unlock challenges and get items that they can. We want them to have that similar flat screen experience within the VR kind of approach. So that was a huge challenge, and the dual wielding, bringing that in as well, and balancing that with all of the different elements within the game and how that might impact different approaches, and just bringing the throwing system is quite complicated, because it's like you're taking an engine in a game that is specifically built for one purpose, and that's to have third-person Hitman games, right? That's the whole point of the G2 engine, and you're basically taking that and going, okay, I now want you to do something completely different, and I want you to be in first person, and I want you to be able to play around with all these different things. And it's, again, kudos to IOI and the engine, and amazing work that they've done with it, and how flexible it is, and all of the stuff we've done wouldn't have been achievable within a commercial engine without really spending years and working from the ground up. So it's a complete, absolute nod to their team on what they've developed with the G2 engine. That's allowed us to do what we've done with it right now. But I'd say pretty much a lot of it's been a big challenge, and the team is fantastic. These are some of the smartest people I've ever worked with in my life who are on this project. And they do absolutely fantastic, and they blow my mind every day we talk about different things and all of this. They're absolutely top of their game across all areas of it, and it's working with them and seeing this project go from, as Bobby was saying, going from nothing, no screen, to then seeing it now that you can fully walk around in Berlin and push people on the dance floor, and you can do all of these things, and it's just been absolutely amazing, and every challenge it's been worth everything we've done to just see this, and I just can't wait to see how players play it and how they approach it and how they break it. That's my key one. How they break it and do world records.
Thank you. And biggest challenge, wow, thinking back over the last 3 years, as founder and CEO, it's my job to enable the teams to do their best work. And as XR Games were funding the majority of this project budget, and we kind of estimated the project take this long, so that's what I've been reported to my board, to my stakeholders. And then you come across unknown unknowns, and it's like some unknown unknowns. You're like, holy right. We need to kind of go back to the drawing board and think this through. It's like, yikes, this is now going to add this much longer onto the project, and kind of managing the project budget and keeping the stakeholders informed and educating them in terms of what's going on. And the board of XR Games have been great and supported us when I said, actually, we need to spend yay more money. So that's keeping all the stakeholders up to speed whilst the team are doing unbelievable work. It has been a serious challenge, but we knew from day one it's going to be a huge challenge, and we went into it with our eyes wide open because we wanted to bring Hitman VR to the Quest audience, so fans of the Hitman franchise can enjoy it. And if there are people who haven't experienced it and are fans of the Quest and they can come and experience for the first time, we think is going to be amazing. So we're here in service to the Hitman community. We've done everything we can to bring it to the biggest VR audience in terms of Quest headset owners. And it's been quite the 3-year journey, and we really, really hope that fans, people who buy this game, enjoy it and have fun, because at the end of the day, we're here to create art to give people joy, and we genuinely hope and believe that people will feel joy when they play this game.
So now, talking about playing it, what personally, this is for both of you, what personally excites you the most about Hitman 3 VR Reloaded, and what are you most looking forward to players experiencing in the game?
Do you want to go first, Christian?
Mine is dual wielding. I'm really excited to see how players approach with the new dual wielding ability, and how they find new ways to tackle each one of the levels. That's more. I love watching the speed runs, as I've mentioned multiple times. I love watching the speed runs where how innovative, with the bomb flying over a building, blowing someone up at the right moment. Oh, it's amazing to see. So that's what I'm most excited to see, is what new strategies can players bring and come up with now having the ability to use both hands and having that freedom.
I think for me is jumping on the word Christian just makes freedom, like untethered. Like when I played it with the PSVR headset, because of the tethered wire, you're kind of always conscious of how far you're moving and always try to stay stationary. But now you're untethered, you've got room scale. I often will lose myself in the experience because you're crouching down, you're peeping around corners, you're trying to get you're shot off, and you're trying to run away, you're trying to drop coins, distract people, and more often than not, I'm kind of bumping into stuff in my real world environment because I've completely forgotten where I am. And it's those moments when I kind of forget where I am in the real world because I've been transported to this virtual. You're like, wow, okay, that felt genuine and immersive, and I felt genuinely present in the experience. But it's just small things, just being in Berlin, right? And you're just hanging out as a security guard, or in the cloakroom, or you're doing this. It's just so much to experience. Now, when you fail the mission, it's brilliant. Go back again, try again. But I've not seen a AAA VR title that has this sandbox element to it. With 6, you got the VR tutorial, you got your training levels, and you got the 6 locations, and there's just so much content there, and you can go where you want, be who you want, and try what you want, and try and get through the missions, and I'll just have fun. I often kind of ignore the missions and just go around and have fun and see what I can create. So just super excited to see what people who purchase the game do in the game itself, with it being a sandbox experience, and kind of very, very excited for that. And for people such as yourself and the videos that you create, with it being sandbox, the opportunities are limitless. So super excited to see what you guys do.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite parts about the Hitman franchise, is the sandbox nature of especially with Hitman 3, of how big the areas are and how much of a sandbox it is. So I'm very excited to experience that, like you said, on a mobile headset, so I can physically move around a lot easier and duck and crouch and all these different things. So now, kind of shifting slightly away from the current line of questions, I'm curious what you guys think about. What do you think that this game, that the Hitman 3 VR Reloaded, says to license holders and developers overall for what's possible in VR for the future?
Great question. So when we took it on 3 years ago, and we're kind of looking at the original budget and like looking at the ROI, you know, it kind of didn't make sense for AAA studio that is used to making AAA games because the ROI didn't quite work out. But I wanted to kind of invest our money into it because we want to bring it to a new audience. We knew it was going to cost more than perhaps what should be spent, but we knew the install base was going to increase over the coming years. And we wanted it to be a flagship for XR Games of look what we've helped make possible. And that's a legit AAA VR title coming to the Quest headset, which is a mobile device. And with all the amazing work that Meta has done to help increase the install base, bring more players to VR, it now shows and signifies to the other AAA studios out there that this is possible. You don't have to compromise your AAA title for the fans of the existing franchise. We didn't compromise in gameplay. We didn't compromise in game design or in AI. We've made all that possible. So, fingers crossed that this helps open up new doors for XR games because we've evidenced what's actually possible. And that's an amazing AAA VR title.
That's amazing, and it makes me excited that you are kind of the flag holder and stepping forward and trying to show the industry that that's possible. Because I think that as the VR gamer base grows, they'll be looking for those the AAA style titles, and being at the forefront at XR Games, I'm excited to see both how this does and what kind of doors this opens up for the future of VR as well.
100%, and audience expectations of an existing IP are something you have to seriously think through. I think one of the core skill sets that XR Games has, we can take a well-known IP and kind of distill it to its core DNA and build a VR experience from the ground up that will resonate with fans. And when I'm saying that, I'm thinking about the movie games, the games we've made based on movie IP, such as Zombieland Headshot Fever or Angry Birds Movie 2. But when it comes to Hitman, this is a AAA audience that have high expectations of their beloved IP, and you cannot let this audience down. And there have been other VR titles where perhaps the audience expectations were greater than the VR experience that they got to enjoy, and we didn't want to repeat of that, and we want to be able to meet the audience expectations. And I think people who are used to Quest games and understand what the Quest hardware is capable of get to play this, and they've played the Hitman 3 before. Hopefully they understand and see and believe that we have done it service. It is a AAA title. So fingers crossed that's what we've aimed for, and fingers crossed the community agrees with us.
Well, I'm excited for the chance to see more and to hear more as time goes on and we get closer to the launch of the game. Now, just kind of ending things off, Christian, Bobby, is there anything specifically that you want to say before we kind of sign off here?
Christian, do you want to go first?
Well, I just want to say, I'm looking forward to everyone playing. I think it's a very fun experience overall. Like I really enjoy it. I think, as Bobby was alluding to earlier, it's very easy to get lost within the game and just have fun, be it going on random sprees or just messing around with the AI and stuff like that, like planting the bananas on the floor and all this kind of stuff. It's a very fun experience, and that's the core fundamental experience that we want to bring, right? Is we want the game to be fundamentally fun. It's a very weird term to say. And just like, again, the team working on this project is absolutely amazing, and absolutely done the best job they can with what it is, and everyone's geniuses on this project, and I cannot give enough compliments to the team and all the hard work that they've done and how amazing it's been for it. And that with the license holders stuff as well, I hope it inspires studios to take risks. There's certain games that would be amazing with more VR features added or looked at, like Alien Isolation screams to me of like a game that would be absolutely amazing in VR, and the modding community do a fantastic job, and they give these really good proofs of concept. So it'd be lovely to see more studios take those risks and go, okay, how can we bring these things to the VR platform for untethered gameplay and whatnot. That'd be probably my last things.
But yeah, great big thanks to the team. Here at Excite Games, been working on this project. They worked tirelessly for the last 3 years, and I'm very excited for the game to come out. And for Christian, as game director, has been absolutely amazing on this project. That's great to see. We had fantastic support from IO Interactive. If there's been any queries or issues, they've been fantastic in supporting us in any help we need, as well as our partners at Meta have been fantastic as well. So it's a great collegiate effort with all these different key parties coming together. And now we hand over to VR influencers such as yourself, Matt, and hopefully if you enjoy it, it'll be spreading the word out to the rest of the gamer community that fingers crossed that this is a game that you believe should be played by the community and is played by the community. And, we're very excited for it to come out, and just super excited.
Well, I'm excited too. Thank you both so much for taking the time to talk. It's gotten me infinitely more excited for the game, which I was already excited for. I'm very excited to both hear and see more in the near future and to finally get my hands on the game. Thanks so much for taking the time to join me.
Thank you for having us. Thank you. Cheers. Take care.
There you go. That is a whole ton of information about Hitman 3 VR Reloaded on the Quest 3. Make sure you tune into the brand new VR Games Showcase on August 15th. I'll put a link down in the description for more information about Hitman 3 VR Reloaded. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, happy questing.